The Battle of Saratoga, fought in September and October 1777. It was the first significant defeat of a British army, and it demonstrated to the world, particularly France, that the American cause was viable and worthy of support. The broader conflict at Saratoga, which included two key engagements, the Battle of Freeman's Farm and the Battle of Bemis Heights, saw American forces under General Horatio Gates and Benedict Arnold's fiery leadership successfully. The implications of this American victory were enormous, both militarily and diplomatically. The Saratoga campaign was the focal point of the British strategy in 1777, which sought to isolate New England, the birthplace of the rebellion, from the rest of the American colonies. General John Burgoyne, a British general with political ambitions and a penchant for theatrics, devised a bold strategy. He led a large force south from Canada to the Lake Champlain-Hudson River corridor, meeting up with British forces moving north from New York City and another force moving east from Lake Ontario. The plan was to converge on Albany, New York, cutting off New England from the middle and southern colonies. However, the plan suffered from poor coordination, ambiguous orders, and a lack of consensus among British commander. Burgoyne's force began its journey south in June 1777, leaving St. Jean on the Richelieu River. His army numbered around 7,000 men, including British regulars, German auxiliaries from Brunswick and Hessians, Canadian loyalists, and a contingent of Native American ally. The first stages of the campaign went smoothly. Fort Ticonderoga, once thought to be a formidable American position, was surrendered without resistance by American forces led by General Arthur Sinclair and Early Joe. Burgoyne's forces advanced down the Hudson River Valley, but as they moved deeper into enemy territory, they encountered increasing resistance, logistical difficulties, and an expanding American army. Burgoyne's difficulties were exacerbated by the failure of other British commanders to deliver on promised coordination. General Sir William Howe, who was supposed to travel north from York to support Burgoyne, instead sailed south to capture Philadelphia. Another column led by Barry St. Leger, advancing from the west along the Mohawk Valley, was defeated at the Battle of Oriskany and forced to retreat after failing to capture Fort Stanwix. Burgoyne found himself isolated, with dwindling supplies and increasingly aggressive American resistance. The American response to Burgoyne's advance was orchestrated by the Continental Army's Northern Department, led by General Horatio Gates. Gates, a former British officer with political ambitions, was well liked by some members of Congress and regarded as a potential rival to George Washington. Gates was supported by talented and experienced officers, including Benedict Arnold, General Benjamin Lincoln, General Daniel Morgan, and the polished engineer that, while Gates preferred a cautious, defensive approach, Arnold and Morgan advocated for more aggressive tactics to harass and weaken the British. As Burgoyne advanced southward, his army encountered increasing logistical difficulties. Roads were in poor condition, supply lines were stretched thin, and the locals were hostile. A disastrous side expedition to Bennington, Vermont, in August 1777, ended in a significant defeat at the hands of American forces led by General John Stark. This battle cost Burgoyne over 900 men, many of whom were irreplaceable German soldiers. The defeat weakened British morale and reduced their already dwindling numbers. By mid-September, Burgoyne's army had arrived near Saratoga, New York. The Americans, led by Gates, had established strong defensive positions south of Saratoga at Bemis Heights, overlooking the Hudson River. Kosciuszko's engineering skills gave the Americans a significant advantage in terrain, as he carefully selected and fortified these positions. Gates' army numbered around 12,000 at this point, and American militias continued to support him. The Battle of Freeman's Farm, which took place on September 19, 1777, was the first significant engagement. Burgoyne attempted to probe the American left, hoping to turn their flank. His column came across troops led by General Benedict Arnold and Colonel Daniel Morgan's riflemen. What followed was a day-long battle over open farmland and wooded terrain. The British were able to hold the field at the end of the day, but at high cost. Over 600 British soldiers were killed or injured, compared to approximately 300 American casualties. Despite technically holding the ground, the British couldn't afford such casualties. Furthermore, American morale was boosted by Morgan's sharpshooters' fierce resistance and effective tactics, as well as Arnold's aggressive leadership. Freeman's Farm exposed growing tensions in the American High Command. Arnold disagreed with his superior because Gates refused to pursue the retreating British, or press the advantage. Their relationship deteriorated further in the days after the battle, culminating in Gates removing Arnold from command. This internal strife had serious consequences later in the campaign. Following Freeman's farm, Burgoyne's army fortified itself north of the American lines, waiting for reinforcements or an opening. However, no relief arrived. Howe was still involved in the Philadelphia campaign, and St. Litter had been defeated. Burgoyne's army was isolated, running low on supplies, and increasingly surrounded by hostile American forces and militias harassing their rear. Meanwhile, the American military was growing stronger by the day. On October 7, Burgoyne decided to launch a new attack to break through the American lines. This engagement, known as the Battle of Bemis Heights, proved to be the decisive battle. Burgoyne dispatched a reconnaissance force of about 1,500 men, hoping to assess American strength and identify a weak point. However, the Americans spotted the movement and launched a preemptive strike. The Americans launched a fierce counterattack, led by General Morgan and returning hero Benedict Arnold, who defied Gates' orders and rushed to the front. The Battle of Bemis Heights was intense and chaotic. Arnold, despite being officially without a command, took the initiative and led multiple charges against British positions, rallying troops and personally directing the attack. His leadership inspired the American forces, which surged forward and overran key British redoubts, including those commanded by German soldiers under General Friedrich. Arnold was severely injured in the leg during the attack, but his actions were critical in breaking through the British lines. Burgoyne's forces, outnumbered and outflanked, were forced to retreat north to Saratoga. On October 13, Burgoyne's army was surrounded. The Americans had blocked all escape routes, and the British supply situation was dire. With no hope of reinforcements and a growing American force closing in, Burgoyne began talks with Gates. On October 17, 1777, Burgoyne formally surrendered his entire army of over 5,000 soldiers. The Convention of Saratoga was the first major capitulation of a British field army during the Revolutionary War, and it dealt a devastating blow to British strategy. The victory at Saratoga had far-reaching implications. First and foremost, it boosted American morale during a time when the war's outcome was uncertain. The capture of an entire British army demonstrated that Continental forces could face and defeat provincial British troops in a major campaign. It legitimized the revolutionary cause in the eyes of many doubters both at home and abroad. The most profound impact of Saratoga was on international diplomacy. American representatives in Paris, including Benjamin Franklin, had been lobbying for French support since the war's inception. While sympathetic, the French were hesitant to commit without proof that the American cause would succeed fully. The surrender at Saratoga provided evidence. In February 1778, France formally entered the war as an ally of the United States, signing alliance and commerce treaties. This fundamentally altered the strategic landscape, transforming a colonial rebellion into a global conflict. Spain and the Dutch Republic eventually joined the war against Britain. The Saratoga campaign also had a significant impact on the key individuals involved. General Horatio Gates emerged from the battle as a hero. Though his role in the victory has been debated throughout history, Arnold, Morgan, and Kosciuszko are often credited with tactical success, while Gates' cautious approach led to missed opportunity. Gates later fell out of favor, following his disastrous command during the Southern Campaign. Benedict Arnold's contributions to the Battle of Saratoga were undeniable. His aggressive leadership turned the tide of battle and contributed to the American victory. However, Gates' bitterness over being sidelined and his lack of recognition would fester in the coming years, eventually leading to his infamous betrayal of the American cause in 1780. The lead wound he sustained at Saratoga never completely healed, leaving him with a permanent limp, a reminder of both his valor and his eventual demise. The defeat dealt General John Burgoyne a severe personal and professional blow. He returned to Britain in disgrace, and never again held a central command. The failure of his plan exposed serious flaws in British strategic coordination, compelling London to reassess its approach to the war. Following Saratoga, the British turned their attention to the southern colonies, hoping to rally loyalist support and regain momentum. Saratoga was a watershed moment, in the Revolutionary War as a whole. Before the battle, the American cause appeared precarious. After France's entry and the capture of a large British army, the momentum shifted. The war continued for several years, but the strategic initiative shifted in favor of the Americans. The alliance with France provided much-needed financial assistance, military supplies, and naval power, which proved crucial in later battles, notably at Yorktown in 1781. Today, Saratoga National Historical Park preserves the battlefield and commemorates the events of 1777. Visitors can explore the preserved terrain, tour the reconstructed redoubts, and learn about the commanders, soldiers, and tactics that influenced the outcome. Monuments to key figures, such as a blue-shaped memorial to Arnold's wounded lid, serve as reminders of the battle's personal sacrifices and complex legacy.